What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're kind of focusing on fitness and wellness trends. We kind of go in like our ins and outs, like what do we think is in, what do we think is out, and why we think that way. We go into a little bit more of like movements. Is there a best way to move? Is there a best way to work out? Is there a best way to approach fitness? And go into more details on that. So, hope you enjoy. Diving in head first, seeing what is the difference between being a fitness coach? What is the difference between the role of a provider in someone's care journey? And then what is like the role when you bring those two together? So like,
I think as a provider who, just like you, like certified personal trainer, I'm not a certified personal trainer, but you have your certified personal trainer,
Yep.
But I have a coaching background and we lead people into the journey. I like that word of like, okay, once we get people out of pain, like what's the next step? Most of the people we work with are athletes.
Yep.
I think everybody's an athlete. Like delineating what that role is very important and important to tell you guys, but as well as like the patient. Once we get people out of pain and working towards that performance, the role of their fitness instructor, whether that's Orange Theory, CrossFit, Lifetime, Barry's, F45, whatever it is to kick their ass. Like,
yeah.
I don't pay, let's say I'm paying $300 a month for a membership. I don't pay them to make sure that my posture is perfect. I pay to get a sweat, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the role of a fitness coach or personal trainer, et cetera, is, yeah, sure, not to make sure we're hurting anything, but like if their form gets a little sloppy in a high volume set of 52 deadlifts, like that's okay.
It's going to get a little sloppy, and we should be able to have a little bit of tolerance for some sloppy form as well.
And that tolerance is, I think, what our role is, right? Our role is to get them tolerant enough or variable enough where they can do things with maybe not the perfect form, but variables of that perfect. Like nothing's perfect. And I don't think there's perfect posture. I don't think there's perfect form. I don't think there's anything. Rather, the ability to still move and be athletic within multiple positions, right? Whether that's lumbar pelvic tilt, whether that's shoulder blade positioning, like working on those variables is what I think our role is in that journey.
I think like when I'm thinking of myself coaching at Orange Theory, I'm not really like, there are little tweaks I'll make to people's form if it looks super sloppy, but I'm not sitting with someone and being like, okay, how does this feel in your pelvis? Or like, where's your shoulder blade right now?
By the way, you got 15 more reps.
Yeah, like we have 30 seconds. I have maybe 10 seconds to give them a quick little cue. That's all I'm going to do in that setting. And then if they're like, okay, this keeps recurring, these issues keep coming up, or this feels really twingy when I do it, come see me in my clinic. Like that's where we can dive deep.
Separation of church and state.
Like I can't be a provider in a fitness setting as a coach in those. And like you really do have to separate it, and it feels uncomfortable, but like.
And that's us as like our main title is provider, chiropractor, right? And so like it's hard to separate that when you're in your fitness realm, right? I think it's equally hard for a well-educated personal trainer to separate. Like I guarantee you there's coaches, personal trainers, whatever you want to call them, instructors who have a really good background of what like perfect form or corrective exercise and like movement strategies could look like. And they almost have to bite their tongue and be like, we have 15 seconds to go through this, or 10 seconds to give you a cue. If that cue lands, great, right? But like that's where I think the role of both providers, kind of the Venn diagram, like here's what they do, here's what our role is. The middle of that Venn diagram is cues and external coaching cues. Conversation is hard for everybody, and especially with somebody with ADHD who just like talking like me. So trying to be as concise as possible with those cues and finding the ones that stick more often than not, right? I have a bank of cues in my repertoire that usually work to get the right thing firing or the right thing stretching or the right thing doing whatever. And finding those things are huge for both of those professionals.
Yeah, I mean, I've noticed lately, especially with my female patients or female members that I'm coaching, they really don't want to lift super heavy. So if I'm in a situation and I'm trying to get them like to understand like you can lift heavy, it's like, how much does your kid weigh? 40 pounds. Okay, you should not be lifting 10-pound dumbbells for a deadlift. Well, you're picking those kids up off the ground.
So, if it's a deadlift scheme, we're like, hey, we're doing 1,000 of these. 10 pounds is probably enough, right?
Yeah,
like,
but if we're
it's
doing
a 3x10,
if we're doing 10 reps, you can go way heavier than that. And that's also a case where we're not going to get super picky about form, because if you're picking a kicking and screaming kid off the floor, your form is not going to be there. So sometimes it's okay to like lean into like, maybe we don't want to always promote that best form ever.
100%.
Within reason.
And that's where like the meld between those two ideas is where we have to live, right? is there, like, let's say I'm deadlifting 400 pounds. You should probably have perfect form.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to get even up to being able to lift 400 pounds, deadlift 400 pounds without the proper mechanisms, the proper efficiency and effective patterns, right? Yep. But if I'm lifting up 4 pounds, I should be able to bend over and pick up 4 pounds with the worst form possible without herniating a disc or spasming my low back or something.
Exactly.
And now, of course, my personal story, I was lifting up probably 25 pounds at the time, my daughter, and she threw a little wiggle and I herniated a disc.
Yep.
And I had decent form when that happens. So like shit happens.
Yeah.
But like that's life. That's human nature.
It's
like,
not
we aren't
having
fragile.
Perfect form all the time isn't going to protect you from an injury more so than having horrible form all the time. Like things just happen. Can we try and prevent it as best we can by having great form? Yeah, but
and dare we say not even prevent it, but like also rehab it too. Yeah. So like both ends of that journey or that timeline too. So So moving into like fads and trends in fitness and the fitness realm, like we're just going to ask in or out, maybe a brief explanation on why you say this and why you are in or why you're out on these. Let's start with low intensity training.
I think I'm in within reason.
For who?
Everyone.
Okay.
Everyone should do some form of low intensity training, meaning like walking.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of the most basic way we can place that. However, I think there is way too much give into the low intensity that we're missing some high intensity, which can have really good cardiovascular benefits.
Yeah.
So like within reason.
Yeah. I think it's like, I almost consider low intensity training active recovery.
Yeah.
Right? Like, oh, I had a heavy lift yesterday or did a 45-minute workout class for whatever reason that is. I need to take the entire day off tomorrow.
Yeah.
No, let's go for a walk. Let's go
ride
a bike.
Movement.
Let's go rollerblading. Let's go underwater basket weaving. Let's do something that's low intensity with that. I also love the idea of walking because it's like the cheapest, easiest thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Right? It's very low barrier to entry. And look it up. I'm not going to cite the research articles, but there's so much benefit to walking. Yeah. Walking sideways, walking backwards, walking up a hill, walking down a hill, walking sideways, like walk. Next one on the list is high rocks. Tell us more.
High rocks? Okay, I don't know a ton about high rocks, but it seems like functional fitness.
It's like we're blowing up right now.
We're doing lifting. We're doing like cardio, like quick, fast sprints or like laps, or we're doing a 5K in between efforts. I think it's 5K might be way too high in the terms of what high rocks is doing, but I think I'm in on that. It seems like they're training to be athletes, let's
pivot here. Variable athletes, which I'm always for variable athletes. Like the same premise of like CrossFit, because like high rocks and CrossFit has like a blend between the two, right? Like it's hard to delineate which one is which. And like in a lot of CrossFit events, they'll do a high rocks event as part of that tier of structure, right? Let's go one step further, which is not on our list, but like Tough Mudders and Ragnars and things like that. Like what's your stance on those?
I am in.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to like mentally challenge yourself. And I think that's a really good, not a lot of people are pushing themselves to their mental capacity. And that's the type of thing that will get you there. However, if you're doing it weekend after weekend after weekend, kind of like a marathon. Most people, I don't want to say shouldn't or couldn't, but I'm going to say shouldn't or couldn't be running a marathon every weekend. Yep.
Like it takes a special person.
For sure.
You know, gifted anatomy and gifted everything. Like there's some luck with being able to do that and not getting
I think things like that, or like in any case, like find something that's going to challenge you mentally and physically is going to be a really good recipe for success.
Love it. How about this one, Maggie? Cardio is bad. We should only be strength training, bro workouts. Slow tempo, 3 sets of 10.
I'm out.
Yeah? Why?
Because
what if it's 3 sets of 15 or 5 by 5?
Fine, I'm in. No,
that's the kicker.
No, I am out on only strength training, and I think that's a really big thing going on right now. That it's just like you need to be lifting, you need to be hypertrophy lifting every single time you're working out. Like, no, we need our hearts to be working. Yeah. Like, we need to be able to get our hearts into those higher heart rate zones and be able to bring them back down for a healthy heart, and that's going to prove a little bit more longevity than just being able to lift up something super heavy. Like, yes, we need to strength train as well. I'm not knocking strength training, but we need to find the balance between both. And I think, again, we've said this word 1,000 times, variability is key, right? Like if your goal is to be an aesthetic bodybuilder, hypertrophy is your answer, right? And like we got to lean out. We do have to do some other things to get that image kind of thing. Similarly, if you want to be strictly a power lifter and compete in the big three, like strength is necessary. Like there are different goals for different athletes, but if we're talking about the generalized athlete, the weekend warrior, the mom and dad, the recent grad, like variability is the key. And I think
to be fair, what I'm hearing from you saying is not dismissing strength training entirely. Like we still need to do big lifts, right? But mixing in that heart rate variability and just playing within that idea.
Yeah.
How about saunas, cold plunges, infrared, red light therapy, that kind of idea within the fitness space? So not in necessarily the treatment or, dare we say, like diagnostic space, clinical space, but more into the fitness space, because we're seeing those pop up everywhere.
I'm in with an asterisk.
Yeah, what's the asterisk?
I think like if it's accessible, I'm in. I think there are other ways we can get like cold therapy and heat therapy without having to pay a lot of money to do them. Like a lot of times those can come with like a big price tag of like, I have to go to a gym that has this option available. And that's not always an option for everyone.
Or it's an additive expense to your membership.
Yep. I don't think like if you're not doing those things, you're not going to be better off on your fitness journey. It's kind of like that asterisk there. Like, yes.
But I saw this Instagrammer that said if you don't wake up at 4 a.m. and journal and then like sun your perineum and then take a sauna and then the water has to be 43 degrees, like that's the perfect way to start your day before 6 a.m.
Yeah, that might be the worst way for someone else to start their day. Like literally that could be like someone's optimal and someone else could do that and try and push themselves to do that. And then they're miserable the rest of the day because they really should be waking up at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Like
I'm a huge fan of all these things, sauna, cold plunge. I 100% agree with you that there's like, if it's not accessible, there are other ways that we can get these benefits. The dopamine, the endorphin rush.
Take a cold shower.
Take a cold shower. Like go out. It's almost winter here in Minnesota. Like go outside. If you're just going to your car and coming back in, like I'm not saying go for a 3-hour trip without a jacket. Like we still need to be safe in case of accidents and things like that. But like if you're just walking down to get your mail, don't wear a jacket. No. Like you can get that cold rush pretty fast.
If you are letting your dog out in the morning, stand outside with your dog for that 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get the same benefits of that cold
therapy. Or at least something close. Yep.
Like, and it's not going to make or break your fitness routine or your progress as an athlete if you're not doing those things, I think. Like, yes, there are benefits to it, but do you have to do it?
Yeah. And that's where like, it's not, if we're looking at priority of health, diet and exercise, exercise and sleep, right? If we're talking about the big three, sauna, infrared, cold plunge, like that can fit into kind of all three of those depending on how you want to view them as a result or an impact of, but like, it's not one of those big three. So like, if it's not accessible, it's not accessible.
Yeah.
Cold is a little bit easier, especially here in Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
Heat is a little bit harder. Like if we're talking about the benefits of getting up to like 160 degree sauna, 180 degree sauna, 190 degrees, like heat is harder to mimic. We can take hot showers. Yeah. But should we be cranking up our water bill for 15, 20 minutes with a hot shower?
No.
Maybe not. Like
you could take a bath.
You could take a bath. There are other ways to mitigate or to mimic that, but I think the cold is especially a little bit more easily attainable.
Yeah. So. Moving away from trends, is there a better way to work out? Is there a better style of working out?
Again, I think my answer is like it depends on what you want. And that's where a tailored program of your wants and needs, and dare I say, not just your wants and needs, but like having a professional guide you through like, here's what you say you want, but reading between the lines, here's what I think you can do. Somebody that's going to challenge you and be kind of your advocacy partner and your badass, right? Like I think those people, whether it's a fitness coach, whether it's a friend, whether it's a spouse, whether it's something like to push you that extra little 5%, 1%, whatever it is necessary. For most people, that is going to be something that we get kind of our big 7 push pull, et cetera, right? All that. As well as some cardio, whether we mean that's low intensity and walking, but for an extended period of time, or we could get, I didn't mention this on the low intensity thing, but like people protocolize things so much. Like if you're doing low intensity, it has to be at 3% incline with 3-pound weights and it's like a
30 minutes.
30 minutes. Yeah. It's like, man, okay, just walk. Right. So I don't think there's an ideal way of working out. Right. I think it depends on what the person wants and what their goals are with an extra little push.
Yep.
You don't want to add anything to that?
No. Okay. I agree full send. No, I think
period at the end
I think like for most people, they need a hybrid.
Yeah.
In general. Like I don't think if you go for one thing, you're going to feel as satisfied with, I don't know. It's different for everyone. So like,
well, and that's where like, even we think about like, let's pick on triathlon people, right? Like they need a lot of endurance. But most likely they're already pretty, like even if they're in the middle of their off season, usually winterish time here, their endurance is still a heck of a lot better than mine. Yeah. Right? And that'll like, as soon as they start training again on season, that's going to come back up a lot faster than mine would if I'm trying to get to that same level. So like, let's work on in that extra little push, that guidance from a coach or a provider or whatever it is, to work on strength, even in the middle of their season. Like we cannot forget about that.
No.
And bringing up my story of like, I was training for this marathon with a 40-pound vest on. Like, I'm a dad, I'm a clinician. Like I had a busy schedule. Any time that I had, I'd be running with a 40-pound vest on. All I did was, dare I say, low intensity running, because I wasn't running. I was, 12-minute mile, 11-minute mile running. And I completely neglected strength. And I think that had an impact on my disc injury because I was so weak and frail and brittle that from all this other stuff. That
couldn't handle that load.
So I neglected strength, and because of time constraints for endurance, and that's what happened.
I think you see that issue happening in most endurance athletes, though.
It's like, whether it's the knees, whether it's
they're the most commonly neglecting that strength training.
Yeah.
But then you also see bodybuilders who are most commonly neglecting cardio.
Or they do like fasted cardio walks or something like that, which is to lean out and kind of boost that metabolism. Yeah, it's not...
You get both ends of the spectrum. And then I think for most people, it's like, find that middle ground.
Yeah.
Find, like, if you really love running, like prioritize that. But let's make sure we get like 2 days of strength training in. Like some extra boost in there.
Staying on the subject probably longer than we wanted to, but like also, you just mentioned like runners, and like a lot of our endurance athletes, and dare I say like a lot of athletes in general, regardless of their avenue, mobility. Like, and not just flexibility, not just passive stretching. Like passive stretching has been outdated as the food pyramid. Like there's a time and a place for it, but usually not. So like active mobility is a huge thing that I think would add into this variability. Let's say you do want to be a bodybuilder, but you can't touch your fingers to your shoulders. Like you can be jacked and mobile.
Yeah.
You can be
you
super
can have
endured
both.
And mobile. Like mobility is a huge aspect that might be missing.
The other day I was scrolling on Instagram. There's a video that popped up. It said if I did 90-90s every day for 30 minutes, that my life will be changed and I'll never have hip pain again.
Kind of on the same vein of like influencers being like, if you don't do this journaling and da-da-da-da-da, like one exercise is good.
Yeah.
Like more ideas and concepts and inferences of that exercise. Like if you have tight hips for 90-90s, for example, let's work on the entire structure of the hips and maybe make your low back more stable and the knee more stable and like work up and down that chain. I think it's clickbait. Like,
of course.
I mean, one exercise is not going to change everybody's life, right?
Yep.
With the exception of maybe walking. I'm going to keep circling back to that. Like walking should be done by everybody. That will change everybody's life. Walk more, your life will change. You'll be happier, you'll be all these things, right? You might build a community and personal relationships if you're walking with somebody, blah, blah. But aside from walking, there's not a single exercise, stretch, rehab movement, lift, whatever it is, that I think is going to change everybody's life. Now, that said, I think there's ideas of exercises that everybody could benefit from. Again, push, pull, press, like all those big 7 kind of things. But like,
there's not one thing that's going to make this big, huge change in every single person's life.
Right. And that's where, especially when we're thinking about why somebody's feeling what it is, right? Like, there's a huge difference between true tightness, physiological shortening of these fibers that cannot separate more, versus tautness. So like a 90-90, for example, it's a mobility control active range exercise. If they're truly tight, they might need that passive stretching that is kind of bashed against. But if they are taut and guarded, like that's where that exercise could be beneficial. So like even though somebody feels something on their posterior hip, that exercise might not be for them.
Maybe so then comes in the role of like, maybe we don't need to listen to these Instagram influencers. Maybe we need to see a provider to figure out what the issue is and what movements will actually give us that benefit of like, this will change your life.
I don't know about you, but do you think there's, like, if you had to pick 3 exercises that everybody could or should be doing, not daily necessarily, but like once a week, just to keep things maintained and working in the right direction, what would you say?
I would probably throw 90-90s on there.
Yeah.
I would throw probably some type of hinge movement in there, which could go into 90-90s as well.
With weight, or just like as a tactic and like
I like position. A weighted hinge, but like even just understanding a hinge. Like you don't have to do it with weight either. And then I love like shoulder mobility, like some swimmers.
Just getting the shoulders.
Like, let's just move your shoulders
away from here.
Or like a Brugger's position where you're opening up that chest a lot. I think those are big 3s. But I guess like, a hinge could go into a 90-90 as well. So if we want to like expand, we could.
So that kind of leads perfectly into like tailored rehab, and where we kind of sit on this is kind of like a shameless plug, but like I always joke with people, just because you see it on Instagram doesn't mean it's an exercise for you.
Yep.
And I've actually like posted like anything I've ever posted on Instagram. Like I posted a post on Instagram that says, don't pay attention to me. Anything I've ever posted is not good for you. Yeah. And like there was an explanation in the caption of like, this exercise was meant for some specific person with a specific case and a specific reason why they're feeling whatever they're feeling, right? Yeah. It's like, where do you sit on why something should be tailored, how that should be tailored, etc.?
Well, personally, all my Instagram posts would pertain to everyone.
Yep.
So
yeah,
follow my Instagram, and
yeah,
you will be
able to follow me.
No, I think like when we get into tailoring an approach to someone, like every single person needs something different, but it might look similar. Like we kind of talked about this earlier. Yeah. If you have one shoulder patient or two shoulder patients back to back, they might be doing the same exercise, but what is the focus of that exercise?
Yeah.
So like, are we looking at shoulder blade more, or are we looking at where your wrist is in space?
Yeah.
Like these little tweaks.
Like you mentioned assisted Brugger's position. Like if I'm getting here, I might want a swimmer with like a winging shoulder blade, like front stroke, backstroke swimmer, to like be focusing on pulling that shoulder blade down and kind of anti-winging, where I might be looking at somebody else's biceps tendonitis, so that they're feeling that stretch, or maybe it's like thoracic outlet stuff, so they're feeling that like neural stretch across that space.
So I think that's kind of where like tailoring comes into play. Like you might be doing the same exercise as 5 other people, but what is your focus on that exercise? What are you, or what are we as a provider trying to emphasize when our patients are doing these exercises or these movements?
And that's where I think, getting back to like the role of provider versus personal trainer, not influencer, instructor is what I was trying to think of, is muddled and gray, is like the intent, right? Like what's the intent of this exercise or this position? Like I've, from continuing education background, like there's a guy named Steve Capobianco, and I heard him say that we're trying to assume a shape, right? Like if I'm talking about a hinge, I'm trying to get into the same, if I see a picture of somebody doing a hinge pattern, I'm trying to match that shape to the best of my abilities, right? It's not even a movement. It's not even a thing. Like it's more of a, like we could almost think of it as a static image versus video of just getting into this shape and then going almost like old school video, where it's like still photos, and then going to the next shape and the next shape and the next shape. Maybe that means they have to stop at shape number 3 out of 6, like then they come back up and we work to 4 out of 6 and just keep continuing that range. But that's where a tailored eye comes into place. Like if we just throw WebMD at things, like, okay, Google, what's a good exercise for patellar tendonitis? You're going to find 1,000 exercises. Some of them might make sense for you. Well, let's backtrack. I think all of them could work for that person. Depending on its intent. Right? And if they're not feeling it in the right area at the right time for the right thing, like.
Well, and the thing is, like, exercises can be so specific. Like, if we're going to the knee, like getting VMO activated, that like inside quad, that's really tough to do if you don't have someone standing next to you telling you how to do it.
Which goes back into like the 1 or 2 cues we can give people, like, okay, just pushing that knee out, mediocre.
Like I've had people doing those exercises on their own. They're like, it's not getting better. And I'm like, okay, let's try it with me cueing you. And then all of a sudden it clicks. Then we're feeling a change.
And that's where, like, I've told this to 1,000 patients, is the easiest thing to change with exercise, we could even talk about fitness, is the quantity. Like either add more weight or do more reps, depending on add more weight and do less reps, or do more weight or less weight with more reps. Like quantity is easy to change. Quality of movement is harder to change. And that comes with intent. Like if they are positionally set up in a mechanism that is inefficient and ineffective to get that VMO to fire, usually that's knee too far backwards versus getting that loaded and forward and center of gravity forward, it's just not going to fire. If we don't put weight on something or load on something, it's not going to load. So simple as that. So quality.
Diving into functional fitness, what do you think that means? Like for me, when I hear that, I'm thinking, okay, this is fitness that is going to help me live my life and kind of improve my quality of life by doing this type of movement, this type of exercise, or this fitness routine.
Do you think it's like, when you hear the word functional fitness, like, I'm a functional fitness instructor, I'm a functional fitness enthusiast, I'm a functional fitness blah, blah, like, what is your knee-jerk reaction feeling?
Like, okay, cool, but like, you got to dive deeper into it. Like for me, that means that, but like, if I hear someone say I'm a functional fitness enthusiast per se, that might mean something completely different to them, because what is functional in their life is much different than what's functional in my life.
So like, good example there, like functional for you is being able to run, play hockey, etc., like do those things. Like functional for a geriatric 70 to 80 to 90-year-old,
squats, sit to stand,
getting off the toilet, right? Like,
or like for me, I really make sure that I'm programming in a lot of hinging motions because I'm standing over a table half a day.
Yep.
So I need to make sure that I can handle that load and handle that positioning. But not a lot of people feel that same need or desire
when they're doing this all day.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
A lot of people need to train a lot more posterior chain because they are sitting all the time and they're in those seated positions. So that front side is always in that shortened position.
Yep. And shortened and not engaged position.
Yes.
Like totally different rabbit hole there. But like, I think my knee-jerk reaction when I hear functional fitness is like, ugh, what does that mean? And I think the definition is so loosely put, and I've been guilty of using it myself. Like, we're going to make you more functionally fit or more functionally capable or functionally whatever it is. Like, what that functional word means to me is, what's your goal? Like, and that goes back to, do you want to do more strength? Do you need more strength? Can I push you into more mobility? Do you need more mobility? Like, getting that thorough assessment, exam, whatever you want to call it, and figuring out the agreed upon goals between instructor and client or provider and patient, like the agreed upon goals plus a little boost is what that means to me.
I think you could argue that any type of fitness is functional.
Just going to say that 100%. Stole the words out of my mouth. Any movement is movement. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But like, anything we're doing functionally, meaning anytime we're moving our body, that's functional movement. Right? Like, and this goes back into my philosophy of treating athletes and us being an athletic, sports-based chiropractic clinic. Everybody's an athlete. And a geriatric person who sat down on the toilet and got up, or if anybody drives to my office and squats or kind of reverse squats to get out of their car, they just squatted. If you poop, you squat.
You're taking stairs.
Yes. Like, you're doing athletic motions all day long. So we have to treat you like an athlete. With that movement is movement idea, like, how would you extrapolate that?
If you're moving, I think that's a win in my book. Like, if you're getting some type of movement in, you're already one step ahead of where you need to be, kind of thing. I think there are different goals that we can have with our movements, but if you are someone and you're like not doing any type of movement outside of your daily living, then I think you're going to see things that kind of break down a little bit. You're going to see more pain. You're going to see more aches. You're just not going to feel as good. And then if you do have a situation where you need to have movement or do something that takes a little bit extra load, it's not going to feel good, or you could injure yourself. So I think like having some type of routine, even if it's a variety, even if you're taking a different workout class every single day, a different style, that's still going to be better than nothing at all.
Getting into one thing for 3 months, then another thing for 3 months, like that's still
you don't have to like commit to a workout plan and then stick to that forever. Like I have a lot of variety in the way I move, and like maybe that's not functional for like an aesthetic perspective, but like I'm moving and I can do a lot of things. I can run, I can lift heavy weights. Like
my like personal opinion on the functional idea is I'm a yes man. Like, if somebody's like, hey Reid, do you want to go XYZ? Yes. Like, I want to be able to say yes. Like, do you want to go play hockey with me today? Yeah. Because I know how to skate and I can do that. I'm variable enough to do that. I
want to be able to do things and not have to say, no, I can't because my body won't let me.
Do you want to go mountain biking? I'm not a great mountain biker, but yeah, I can do that.
I'll figure it out.
Do you want to go play pickleball? Never played pickleball. Yes, I can do that. Like, being able to be not a jack of all trades, but like master of none, but like capable of saying yes to everything is ideal, right? Day-to-day wise, hey, I'm missing this connecting flight. I need to run through the airport. I should be able to do that. Like those big things, I think, is what functional fitness means to me. And so we just kind of mentioned like movement is movement, and any movement is better than no movement, and not even sedentary lifestyle versus anything else, but like playing around with things. And like you talked about a 90-90 position earlier, like 90-90 is just a position. We're talking about the front leg, the back leg, like get into a position, a hinge position, a push-up position, or whatever position, and just play around, right? Exercise with a strength, cardio, blah, blah, blah idea and connotation behind it is an exaggeration. Like if I go running 5K every morning, that might help me run across that airport a little bit easier. If I lift up 300 pounds off the floor, that's going to help me lift my child who weighs 40 pounds a lot easier, right? When we're thinking about strength, especially exercise, like I just think that's an exaggeration. And if we think about fitness as a whole, in the variability, the key term that we keep bringing up of like, depending on your goal and everything else, like just go out there and do it. And I think that is the trend that I'd like to see happen more.
Just do something.
Is do something.
All right, so there you have it. That is all our takes on fitness, movement, what's best, what's worst, and maybe everything in between. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you soon.